Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Ball Games. This is our pre-modern open. Jay on Landstill versus Brad on Terrageddon. And on a rampage so far in this tournament, looking very strong. Jay and his undefeated streak march toward our top 8. 37 players in this event. Big thanks to Duress Crew that helped with such a big success. New attendance record for Premodern. See if we can break it. February 17th, I believe is the date. Check our website on Facebook. Let me know in the comments anywhere else you'd like to see these events posted. I want to make sure everybody that should be hearing about these events hears about them. Seating easily for 42. Last event, we actually had a little bit of overflow initially. Had to have some people play in the Chinese restaurant next door during round 1. Cleared off some additional space as we had such a tremendous turnout. Much more than I suspected based off of the pre-registration online. Be ready for the next one for at least 42 players. Have that overflow option. Now, Meddling Mage was mana leaked, a little bit of a firefight early, and players just kind of draw go here. Nobody overcommitting. There's a standstill on the board. Looks like Brad making the first move. Under standstill, taps down the island, goes to the second main, and breaks standstill with a Meddling Mage. Did he make a land drop after that? I guess he's 100% certain Jay's not on any copies of Days. Could have been very bad. Swords to Plowshares discarded during the end step, indicating that that is indeed what Meddling Mage is naming. Dismantling Blow, too. That is a spicy card, one that I've actually sleeved up in Vintage days past. Extra value out of blowing up a problem artifact or enchantment if you kick it. Drawing 2 cards is no small thing. The most mana efficient, but man, it has a ton of utility. The Fury's response. That is indeed a powerful response to Rishadan Port. Yikes. That is exactly why you sleeve that card up, to try and hit opposing ports or dust bowls, counter the ability, and draw. Discarding another Swords to Plowshares. I don't know how I feel about. I feel like at some point you're going to have to get rid of that original Meddling Mage, and then you'll have swords for future threats, but I suppose if the rest of the hand is that good. Certainly not a lot of lands coming down on Jay's side for a deck in the title. The Impulses, he actually does take a land. Not really why Impulse is in there, but you gotta be making land drops at some point. Sends for 2 with the Meddling Mage. Already longer than some of the matches that we've seen for this format. This is a real marathon. Both players, so that the outcome of this match likely to be an accumulation of all of their errors. Huh. We just Swords to Plowshares. I'm pretty sure that's that same Meddling Mage. Let me know in the comments. I think we have a very significant misplay here. Mishra's Factory taken out by a Swords to Plowshares. Decree making a couple bodies. This does stack up favorably against the Meddling Mage. And another Swords? Oh, man. I mean, I do these in one take. Let me know if I missed something. Try not to be too incredulous about it as I watch this in case I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Meddling Mage is naming swords. And Brad just fired off 2 Swords to Plowshares. The second one I actually don't even like the timing of. I think you actually want to swing with your Meddling Mage, make them double block, and then Swords to Plowshares. You get that little extra value out of it. Typically how I would be looking to make that line. And again with the Naturalize, I actually feel the same way. So we have a Humility on board, and with Naturalize in hand, just blowing it up and swinging. How you would play that. In both of those instances, I would very likely look to get that value out of it. Terravor has shown up and is brushed aside with the Meddling Mage. Terravor threatening lethal here. Another one. This one cracks Jay's standstill, gives him a full grip, but he is tapped out. Did commit that standstill on the same turn as his Wrath of God, lowering the shields, giving Brad the opportunity to commit a potentially lethal Terravor on board. Can he find an answer? He's going to need something like a Swords to Plowshares or a Wrath of God. That is a 9/9 Terry, looking at 9 points of life. You can look at the art. You can tell he is hungry for those final points of life. But there is a Wrath of God. We may see a 5-1 split here. Or 4-1 split, I should say. 5-0 splits pretty much only happen under the influence of a Mindslaver. Oh, giving him the extra land. Wow. So Adakar wastes and the Wrath of God. And the board will be wiped yet again. And another Terravor. Ooh, and a Weathered Wayfarer. Wasteland takes out that Adakar Waste, which was a freebie anyways. Free one from hand replaces it. Terravor goes farming. And that's a whole lot of life for Brad. This is going to be a long way to unravel. Going back in the other direction here. Brad still has Weathered Wayfarer on board, who can start fetching up man lands and does find a treetop village. Decree of Justice making a whole bunch of bodies. That is a party. In a card. Just end step, draw a card. Bring 4 boys to the yard. I can cancel out this treetop village, but that Weathered Wayfarer not likely to get into combat. He can just keep finding more and more pressure. And Jay's life total is low enough that manlands are a very reasonable threat. Very credible threat to his life at this point. On the other side of that, Brad doesn't necessarily have to worry about getting clocked out by a Mishra's Factory. 16 turns, potentially. Wayfarer searches again. Grabs a Wasteland. And sends with the Treetop Village. That does take down 3 of the soldiers. Fairy Conclave, another manland. Weathered Wayfarer does allow, it actually just has to be a true condition in order to activate. So you could actually activate a Wasteland even if you were at parity. And then with the activation on the stack, sacrifice already, so that you've already sacrificed the Wasteland, but the ability hasn't resolved. At that point, you can actually activate Weathered Wayfarer and go tutor a land. You don't have to be way behind. That is definitely available to him. Wayfarer continues to search up problem cards here underneath a standstill. This is a really scary card to have a standstill out against. I mean, they can just repeatedly find things to take care of your life total and take care of kind of your best effort on the board. Wasteland and Rishadenport are both major problems, and he's going to go ahead and use the Rishadenport on this factory. They allows that to happen. Goes down to 4. A Dust Bowl of his own. That is a welcome addition. Takes out the Treetop Village and can continue to take out any of Brad's other lands that might threaten his life total. Of course, he's got a whole bunch of basics here, but at this point, yeah, it's kind of anybody's. Well, he's got the Wasteland for the Dust Bowl. I speak too soon. Oh, but Teferi's response. He's actually breaking his own standstill. Dust Bowl, if it wasn't for Wasteland, would be able to run Roughshod. Of course, Wasteland or an opposing Dust Bowl would take it out. That didn't make too much noise there. We're getting through all of the Premodern, hopefully in this session. Looking forward to seeing this. That is not sacrificing Wasteland. That should have been sacrificed before. Both players just getting the board back on track. And we've got an Armageddon. This card is just disgusting here. Going to reset. Brad will have a creature and a Mox on board. Jay will have absolutely nothing. Gives him a land, a decree, or waste, or a counterspell and Wrath of God. Oh, it was a second Armageddon. Okay, so there were actually 2 lands off screen there. I thought that was a desperation Factor Fiction. He did actually have 2 blue available. That was used to counter the first Armageddon. And then the second Armageddon actually resolved. Offering a trade. Got a second Wayfarer. Again, 100% sure that he doesn't run Daze. He might just be causing psychological damage by playing his land after. Disenchant takes out the Mox Diamond, so no white now for this Weathered Wayfarer. He chips in, putting Jay down to 2. Adhikar Waste's not actually the best source of white mana. Got a factory on board which can stop this Weathered Wayfarer to a degree. Dust Bowl joins his side. And uses his final point of life. He is now at 1. Swords to Plowshares, taking out. And that's going to do it. Wow, Call of the Herd. Jay scooping it up. Factory on board. Good block and pump. That is interesting. What a peculiar game. There were a lot of decisions made as a marathon. I am looking forward to seeing some discussion on this, trying to find the optimal lines. 2 decks that are made to go the distance. Game 2, Jay leads out. He's a Weathered Wayfarer very quickly from Brad. And I'm not going to lie, Landstill's not the type of deck you actually want to lose game 1 with. You're going to have to speed run game 2 to have a chance at getting a draw game 3 is very often how that's going to work. It's a great front runner deck, when you've got good matchups in the room and you potentially win game 1 and not care if game 2 goes to time or not. But if you lose a really long game number 1, that's a real problem. Wayfarer's done a lot of work match so far. Got his work cut out for him. This is not going to help. I think he's trying to figure out if he can fetch to essentially counter the ability. That will not work. He's just good at his job at the end of the day. If you have more lands than your opponent have priority, they're going to be able to activate their Weathered Wayfarer. Grabs a land and plays it. Let me know if that sequence was actually incorrect. Back from a pause there, so I may not have picked up on the action accurately. Looked to me, Brad got 2 lands out of that situation. Now facing down a Dust Bowl. Actually using his Dust Bowl as a really bad wasteland. Paying 3 and sacrificing the Dust Bowl itself. Meddling Mage. Ability. Diamond into a Disenchant effect and a second Meddling Mage. Mox Diamond. Such good mana fixing in this format. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Build your deck expecting to discard lands to it. Now we have a Decree, cycling, double blocking a mage. Sylvan Library. That's actually a really dangerous card here for Jay. Sylvan threatens to bury him. Doesn't have much in a way of punishing the extra life that can be paid for extra cards. And Weathered Wayfarer, along with Sylvan, represents a potential shuffle, which is probably the biggest reason why Sylvan's not like an absolute all-star in this format. It sees a bunch of play, but it's not at its absolute best in Premodern, I would argue, because of the difficulty of shuffling. Weathered Wayfarer, he allows for shuffling whenever you like. Fact or Fiction with a bunch of removal, 2 Swords to Plowshares, and a Wrath of God. It's like we're going to have another 3-2 split. Guess Meddling Mage is not naming Swords to Plowshares. Swords are taken. Wasteland and Rishadenport on Brad's side of the board. Just interaction at every level. Mana bases interacting, creatures, life totals, Wrath of God. Clears the board. So yeah, he's got 2 Swords to Plowshares in hand. Able to clear with Wrath. Fury's Response. Able to keep him in this game. Wasteland. Now going to try and do a little damage, but it's kind of fighting from behind. See how much work this Sylvan can do, but Jay going to discard, that's not where you want to be. Jay needs to find a way to close this game. It would be very unfortunate for him if it's such a commanding position game 2 and doesn't at least get a draw. It's like we're about 46 minutes into the recording. We are going at double speed and cutting out the shuffling. All of the Herd and Terravore. Both of these likely to get hit with a Swords to Plowshares. Call of the Herd, though. Resilient card. I mean, that's going to require more than a single Swords to Plowshares to mop up. Paying some life. Of course, giving life to the player with the active Sylvan really hurts. Give them 8 life, and they're able to draw 2 cards off of the Sylvan with that. A kind of 3-for-1. Traded the swords with their threat, but got 2 extra cards to replace it. Got responses, but this is a great hand when you're in front. If he had an empty board, he'd be pretty happy with this. Instead, he's going to take a couple of counter spells off of his Factor Fiction. Weathered Wayfarer is deemed to be the bigger threat. All of the Herd token can at least be handled by a Mishra's Factory. Potentially, though it's going to be tough with both Rishadan and Wasteland. Another Call of the Herd. Counterspell on the front side. Does he just jam? Flash it back right now? No, he'll go with the Weathered Wayfarer. Saw that card also represents a steady stream of threats as it can tutor up. Yeah, I think we're actually being time called. Is that turn 2? Oh, that's going to be a heartbreaker for Jay. Hard fought, but I can't imagine how he's going to close out 11 points of damage here. He's going to need Decree of Justice, I guess. Time was called last turn. This is turn 1 of 5. Turn 2. Now turn 3. Sylvan. Able to just keep digging. Brad in very strong standing as well. Still has that Sylvan on board. Has access to cards like Call of the Herd, which are difficult to answer cleanly. I mean, you're always losing some level of efficiency on them. See how this ends. Okay, at this point, just fighting for a draw. He is down 1-0, and he's got the Call of the Decree. How many bodies is this? It is not enough. Yeah, it would need to be unbelievable amount of bodies to get through there. 11 points of damage against blockers. I mean, you would have needed like 9 or yeah, something like 9 guys. It'd be 7 and 5. Wow, hard fought game. Premodern can really run the whole gauntlet of different play styles.